Hey everybody, this is Erica from the Classy Climb blog. I just had to talk to you guys today about food stamps and short-term thinking, winning in the new economy, episode 2. A lot of people are like, Erica, what's wrong with food stamps? Food stamps help people. They do. They do. This is not me knocking food stamps. I want you to know this video does not start out that way. I'm just relying stories of personal stories I've had where I remember I was working, 3 jobs at a time just so that I could, kind of get a bump up over the next month, right? Because I knew with a lot of money coming out, I had a surgery, I had to pay for all these different things. So I'm working, and I'm putting the money away into bank certificates that will come back to me in 3 months and 6 months. Working. And all of a sudden, I'm like talking with a couple of employees, and they were going on food stamps. And I was like, well, why are you going on food stamps? Well, this job only pays $8 an hour plus tips, so I'm only making like $1,000 a month. And I go, you only work 20 hours, dude. Why don't you go down the street to Papa John's or something over there and deliver pizzas at night? Because you're only working at lunchtime right now. Go deliver pizzas at night. You don't got no kids. And right then and there, you probably get you an extra $1,500, maybe two grand a month, because your whole nights are free, right? Immediately his face kind of like 2 jobs? Yeah, dude, 2 jobs. In order for you to we're just doing basic math, and it showed me again, every time I talk to people in America, we're not teaching basic math in schools. We're just not. So in order to make it in a lot of these cities, major cities, not little cities, little towns, I'm talking about major cities, you're gonna need about $4 grand, 4 to 5 grand a month. Now, why do I say that? Because apartments in a lot of these cities, 2 bedrooms are like 1,500. Even 1 bedroom is 1,500. So 3 times that in monthly income is about 4,600, right? So in order to really live, or unless you want to live in a lower income area, maybe $600 rent, $700 rent, which is rare to find in many cities, especially Austin, Texas right now, you're gonna have to make more money. And so as I was talking to him, I felt sorry for him because he was seeing this as the only way out because he only had 1 job. And I was going, well, keep applying for other jobs, or won't you go to community college and get a skill? We also had another employee, he was 24, and he was living with his friend, and he had a bicycle, and he only had 1 job. And I was like, why don't you just go across the street here and work nights at the Chick-fil-A, or work nights at the grocery store, or work nights somewhere else? And he was like, well, I don't have a car. I was like, well, you already don't have a car. At this point, at least work side by side. So when you go home and catch the bus or ride your bike, you could just go home. And I don't think he totally got it. I mean, he'd been in Austin a year and saying, yeah, I've been working for a year, but hadn't been able to get a car, haven't been able to do these things. And so I think we have a communication problem and a math problem right now in society. We're not telling kids how much things cost. Like, I can't buy you those things because they cost so much money, but we're not sitting down with kids and actually doing math, right? Because I'm meeting too many adults who go, well, I got 1 job and that's just it. Or I don't want to work multiple jobs. That's too stressful. Or I have to show my manager. I actually know people who've lived with their moms for 10 years, working 1 job and telling me that, the debt's too high. Well, dude, your debt, even if you just focus on paying off your debt the first 2 years you lived with your parents, you should have been debt free the past 8 years. Because you haven't bought a new car, you've only traveled on trips, and you only had 20 grand of student debt, and you live rent free. So it's some of the things you're hearing in some of the conversations, you can tell people just aren't good with math. And that's what the struggle is. That's where we're having problems in the new economy. And even with people who get Social Security checks, people will live to the right underneath it, and that's it. And that's the problem with credit cards, is people are living beyond that, right? Instead of thinking of ways to create income. So even when I talked to the young men talking about hustling, Instacart, working multiple delivery jobs, I was like, listen, if you have a car and you're in a hole, you need to be like this. Now, what happens when you're busy working? People think this is crazy. They're like, Erica, working multiple jobs, you're going to be exhausted, you're going to be tired. You're going to pinpoint what you really want to do. You're going to nail down what you really want to do. You're like, as you're driving that car, as you're delivering those pizzas, as you're doing whatever it is you're doing, you're going to say, this is what I really want to do. I really rather do this. I really rather go to community college for this. I mean, even when I meet real estate agents who have to work a full-time job and then do real estate on the side, they realize the deeper they get into real estate, I really want to be a real estate investor. So I'll just use this job to qualify for real estate investments. Also, they get in the muck of things and go, well, I only want to invest in this area. When really, if you look outside your area and invest in Indianapolis or Maryland or somewhere, you could come up with a $10,000 down payment for these $50,000, $40,000 houses, and now have rental income coming in every single month. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Erica, the bank didn't give me money like I thought they would. But these same people will have $20,000 credit cards or multiple credit cards. There was a young lady who had 20 credit cards and she had about 25,000 in debt. And it was just like, you pretty much have a bunch of $1,000 credit cards. Instead of the things you bought, which are mostly stuff that you could sell and pay this debt off, you could use that money instead to buy passive income, right? To buy a rental. You know, even when I was working the 3 jobs and people thought it was crazy, I was putting away, I think, $25 a day in bank certificates. So that, you know, I think it was 30 a day for it at some point. Pretty much just one paycheck went to those bank certificates. And when I did actually leave the job and actually had a surgery, 3 months later and 6 months later, every day $30 came back into my bank via the bank certificate. And I was like, this is great. I must teach other people about this. I must show other people about this. I must tell them. But in order for you to even get in that position, you got to have the income to say, I'm just going to put this $30 away for a 3-month period in the future. Right? We don't even, you know, people won't even say, I'm going to put this money away for the future. And what happens, you know, prime example, everybody gets their tax refund. We see a bunch of new cars, 30-day tags, you know, new TVs, new stuff, new clothes, new trips. Vacations, a lot of vacations happen at their tax time. And hey, I get it, but it would have been smarter for you to book your cruise in Thanksgiving timeframe and put $100 a month until you pay the cruise off for a $400 inside room or a $500, you know, balcony, not a balcony, but a one with the window, port window. So, I mean, it's just basic math. We're not teaching math in school. We're not breaking it down for people. We're not saying this is how you can get there to your freedom point. We're not saying what is your freedom number, right? Because honestly, if we talk to people, even if you talk to people who own homes in the South, there's places in Southeast where homes are $35,000 to $80,000. You can get a 1980s house that needs a little bit of repair for that price. And, you know, I could pull up links all day, but you can do this yourself by going to realtor.com and look up some Southeast cities, basically Savannah, parts of Georgia, Macon, Georgia, gosh, I'm trying to think of ones for you to name off, but even parts of Atlanta, even parts of Birmingham, Alabama, just different places. Tampa, Florida, 60 grand houses. And what happens is, you know, if they make 30 grand a year and their wife's making 30 grand a year, if they put a little bit of extra towards that house, they could probably pay that house off in 10 years. And that's just putting 6 grand a month. I mean, 6 grand a year towards that 60K house, right? Because you really got to think about the interest, but 6 grand a year. Now imagine that. If you lived in an apartment and the apartment was $1,000 a month, you paid 13 grand. You paid 12 grand and some change, but because of lights and bills and gas. But think about that. You're putting 12 grand a year to an apartment complex. Your mortgage is going to be significantly lower. If you paid like you paid in an apartment complex or a little bit less, you'd have your house paid off. If it's one of those really cheap houses in like 5 years. And I've met people who've done it. You know, I had friends who did the Dave Ramsey plan and right out of college, and they were working together. And yes, it does help if you're married. I get that, or you're cohabitating, or you have a spouse. I always recommend the spouse part. Cohabitating sometimes doesn't work. But if you're married and you get one of these cheap little $50,000 houses that you worked on, if you guys chunk $1,000 a month at that bad boy, really? In 5 years, that thing is gone. You know, depending on your cost, but that thing's gone. That thing's done. Okay. So that right there, if you get in that mindset, is great. But I meet people who are like, I'm retiring out the military. I'm going to get a brand new house at the top of my LES litter. I'm going to get a brand new BMW. I'm going to get my wife a brand new BMW. And now my income's cut in half. Now, a lot of these people are getting 6-7 grand in retirement. Now they're going to get probably a 2 to 3 grand every single month for the rest of their life, but a lot of people get disability on top of that. So that's where I'm saying 6 and 7 grand. And some of them are getting into that, you know, 100,000 pay range. You know, I don't think the federal government ever thought they'd be paying $100,000 to a lot of these vets, but they are. And so now he's bought this brand new house at the top of his budget. He's bought this brand new BMW for her, brand new BMW for him, probably $800 car payments. So that's $1,600 car payments. The house is probably $1,600 mortgage, you know, on top of some other things and whatever old debt they had before he retired. And now look at that, you're in debt. You're gonna have to go back to work. Instead of, you could have been sitting there going, I'm retired, I'm a retired vet. I got 6-7 grand coming in a month. I'm gonna take 1,000 off the top and invest every month into lending club notes. Invest 1,000 every month into buying an acre here, an acre there of land where I can, have it as the down payment, whatever. People aren't thinking that way. And so what happens is we have a lot of short-term thinking, and short-term thinking causes long-term problems. And in the new economy, you just can't do that, right? We have to have longer term thinking. We realized, looking at this election, that someone's father can invest in real estate in New York when it's cheap. And then years later, the son comes along, almost 50 years later, and he's worth billions because of investments the father made. What are you doing as a mom or whoever to show your kids, hey, if you invest in stocks or bonds or monthly dividends, or what I'm saying, you have to be showing your kids, your family, long-term solutions. And long-term, we may always say, well, the rich get richer, Erica. No, business owners get richer. People who make investments get richer. People who own things get richer. Now, this is I love sharing this story. Well, there used to be a guy, we called him the junk man. He had a yard full of junk. As clear as the eye could see, it was junk everywhere. And everybody's like, man, all that junk. Well, his wife got sick. And this is out in Parkton, North Carolina. His wife got sick, needed to be in the hospital, and we were like, everybody's like, man, that poor junk man, what are you gonna do with all that junk by himself? He started cleaning it out, started selling the scrap metal, started selling everything he could, the buses, the old Mustangs, the old Camaros, every single thing he could sell, he sold. It was like American Picker on steroids. And guess what? Now, clean yard, huge yard. He sold an acre over there to somebody, and they built a house on it. And then they built a fence, of course, because they didn't want to see any more of his junk. And he just kept doing that for about 2 years. Let me tell you, that man had a beautiful retirement. I mean, he was already old, but his wife was sick. But I mean, it literally, when you saw the transformation of that yard getting cleared out, all that junk metal, all that scrap, I don't know if it was $60,000 or $50,000 between all the old cars, the Camaros. He had a school bus out there. He had all this stuff out there. Once he started selling it and selling off acres at a time to other people to build their homes on, and they just put a fence on the edges of him, that was money. That's money. So we may laugh at people we see hauling junk, but that scrap metal is money. Sometimes those cars, that they're buying for $300, they're gonna get at least $400 for the engines. They're gonna get $400 for a lot of the metals on the inside the parts, just pull it apart. Just different parts they're providing, used parts for people. There's whole junkyards that they literally they call pull parts. And it's just full of old cars. And if you find what you need, you pay in per part. So if you've got 100 cars out there, and every day someone's coming and pulling $20, $50, $60 worth of parts times 100, which, is high, but you know what I mean? If you're near a bigger city, that person's raking in the dough. Now, they have a lot of junk cars, but all they're going to do in the end is crush them if they need to. So listen, you have to think of longer term thinking and long term ways. Now, I've been watching some people on the internet, and they keep whining about net worth and net worth and net worth and net worth. Listen, I want you to get towards net worth, having a positive, building long-term net worth. But in order to do that, you got to have the income come up. Just like the guy who didn't want to deliver pizzas to make his car smell like pizza. Just like the guy who was getting on food stamps because he was confused that he only had one job and it was paying him $8 an hour. And the thought didn't occur to him, I better go get an afternoon job. These people must realize any fool can work really hard and get the income up, but you got to figure out ways to make the money last longer, right? And if that means starting with your tax refund and putting it in bank certificates so it comes back to you later, if that means taking your tax refund and paying up your rent for the year. I had a lady who took her tax refund, and she had a big one. She had like $8,000, and putting it on a small house. Her and her kids lived there. She cleaned it up. Next year, she rented it out to somebody else and took that tax return that was even bigger because she got home buyer credits and she started a new job. It was even bigger the next year, bought a different home. And I think she did that for about 3 years. And her last home is the one she loves, and the other two are just rentals. But that's the power of thinking bigger, thinking long-term, thinking, okay, I'm going to take this money and buy something with it that produces something for my future, not just a vacation, or not just, I'm going to go on 12 different little vacations, or I'm going to keep this thing. And I see people right now keeping these giant pickup trucks and Suburbans and stuff, and they can't afford the gas in it or the repairs, but they're like, it's paid off. I'm like, go get you a little sidecar. I'm not saying sell your big car. I'm just saying get you a little sidecar. So everybody, this is Erica, Classy Climb blog. Winning in the new economy requires thinking, a little bit more hustle, and putting money away to your future. Everybody, have a great day.